Hey guys, it's Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist and nomadcapitalist.com here in Tivat, Montenegro, hanging out near one of my favorite summer homes here in Europe. Wanted to throw out a question to you. If you are especially a US citizen, but really if you're anybody who's tired of paying high taxes, this is a question about taxes. If you're living in the United States right now, if you're living in the UK, if you're living in Australia, if you're living in any of these high tax countries that we talk about, the people who come to me who apply by the thousands for help, largely reducing their taxes, I want to throw out a question. If you're currently living in a high tax country, and if you're currently paying the 30, 40, 50, even 60% that some people tell me they're paying when they're living in their home country. And that is your goal to go to zero tax? Is your goal to go as low as possible? Or are you willing to pay a little bit of tax to get some lifestyle benefits, get some diversification benefits, perhaps get a second passport? Which is more important to you? I think this is an important question that we've talked about in a lot of different ways, but not so much directly at Nomad Capitalist, where it is legal for most people, including US citizens and including non-US citizens, to put together a strategy. We're using a combination of companies, of bank accounts, of residencies in some cases, of whatever else, structuring the company, structuring the work, structuring your life. You can reduce your taxes to zero, and you can do so legally by making some lifestyle adjustments. A lot of people say, I want to get it as low as possible. Andrew, I heard that you're at around 1% on everything globally. That's where I want to be. Now, I ask you this because for someone like me who is at 1%, the idea of going to 10%, sounds like a lot of money. I mean, it's like a six-figure sum every year that I'm going to pay, and what am I going to get in return? But let's say back when I was paying 43%, someone would have said, hey, we can get you down to 10%. You can live in the European Union, and in 5 years you'll have a European Union passport, or in 6 years, or in whatever number of years. And you don't have to live there full-time, but live there part-time. Would that have been worth 10%? Well, at the time, when I'm paying 43%, to go to 10% sounds pretty darn good. And that's the question that I want to ask you. Happy to have you leave an answer in the comment section. If nothing else, just think about it. I ask this particularly for US citizens because there are places where you can go. You don't even have to necessarily spend a lot of time actually living there physically, but you can get residence in a top-notch Tier A country, spend a little time, come back in 5, 6, 7 years, get your passport. The catch in some of those cases is if you have the BVI company or the total tax-free company, they may not allow you to be tax-free in their country. So let's say you establish a residence flag somewhere and you know that you're going to get that passport in 5 years. But they'll only allow you to not pay tax on your global income for not living there if you're using an approved company. So maybe you have a Malta company or an Ireland company where the taxes are 5 or 12.5%. Maybe you can have some deductions. You're somewhere in the single-digit % tax rate. Would that be worth it for you to pay single-digit tax rate for 5 or 6 years in order to get that Tier A passport? And again, for an American, for a US citizen, that might be a better question to ask, because if you're a German, you may not want another passport. But if you're a US citizen, you may want another passport. So my question is, if you're at that 40, 50, or above % level right now, is it worth paying a little bit of something for a fixed number of years to get the payoff, such as a second passport, i.e. by structuring your company in a low tax but not zero tax jurisdiction that lets you do that? Or would you rather just go right to the zero tax? This has been my experience. It's hard for me to want to come back and say, hey, let me get that EU passport in 5 years, but it's going to cost me 100,000 euros a year in taxes. The thought of not only the money, but then the bureaucracy sounds like a lot of work. And so therefore, there are certain opportunities that I think are good that I don't personally do, because for me, it's just not worth the investment. But for someone who's already paying a lot, it could be nice to stair-step from 50 down to 10, spend a couple years there, and then eventually later stair-step down to zero. Something to think about. Love to hear your comments. Tell me what you think. What is the desired rate? Is it all about zero, or is it worth paying a little bit of money to live full-time in one place? If it's a very low tax rate, is it worth it if you can get a second passport? Is it worth it if you can get other lifestyle benefits? What is the goal for you? Definitely something to think about before you start your offshore plan. Knowing where you want to end up, as I always say, is the most important thing you can do before you start building your plan. And there's a question I think that deserves an answer. No answer is better than the other, but definitely something to think about. If you want to find out more about tax reduction legally, if you want to find out more about second passports, definitely subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Definitely also check out nomadcapitalist.com.